Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. We are here to review straight off New Zealand's fantastic win against India in the first Test match of the best of three series. Today we have our guest Michael, as always, when we're talking New Zealand cricket. And Michael, what a win for New Zealand! Amazing win, amazing Test match. Considering what we had in the first innings, where India were just absolutely horrendous and New Zealand were brilliant. India made 450 plus their second innings, but wasn't enough. But congratulations to New Zealand. They did win this match. And how are your thoughts at the moment, Michael?
Yeah. All right. We've got a pretty poor line here, but I'll just talk and hopefully that'll come through.
Yep.
Huge
ahead,
number
Michael.
of runs scored in a short space of time. You know, you're looking at the whole test was about 240 odd overs. So that's 2.5 days. And in that time we had 1,000 runs scored and 32 wickets go. I mean, wonderful. Marvellous cricket all round. And it was particularly good because New Zealand won.
Yes, indeed. We did, that did come through, so no need to worry with that, Michael. Dissecting the first innings, India did actually win the toss, and they decided to bat first. Now, with Indian pitchers, we know they're dust bowls. They don't really seem that much often. But I reckon there's been a message from the BCCI saying that we need seaming-friendly conditions. Now, we've came and seen the Australians, especially their fast bowling cartel, come out and say, you know what, we can't have these hard rock pitches against India. We want some more green tops. And I've noticed in the Bangladesh series that they've responded to that. They've made seam-friendly conditions, which we've never seen when you win the toss in India and you bowl. That's just so rare. Happened twice in Bangladesh. And we've seen it here once again, bowl-friendly seamers, which is very odd. What do you make of that? Do you see that as a kind of a response to what Australia said, knowing that they're going to make green top pitches, or is it just one of these rare things that has happened?
I don't think it actually had anything to do with Australia here or any directive from the BCCI. What happened in this situation is there were 3 days in a row before the test where it rained so heavily that they couldn't get the covers off and they couldn't roll the pitch. They hadn't even drilled the holes for the stumps to go in. Like, that's how they hadn't marked out the pitch. They hadn't marked put the paint on it. They couldn't stay. The game didn't start on time because they hadn't had a chance to calibrate the TV cameras and the Hawkeye. So it had been so bad, the weather leading up to it. This was not a deliberate green pitch. This was a pitch that they just hadn't had a chance to get enough rolling onto it. And I honestly think they don't know what it was going to do. Like, this was not a normal Bengaluru pitch. They did go with the red clay, which was designed to get more spin, and is what I'm told, that was the one that gets the I think the bouncier spin that's going to work more for like the likes of Kuldeep and Ashwin. And maybe not quite so good for Jadeja. But it was, that was the pitch they went with, was aimed to be a spinning pitch, but they just didn't get a chance to prepare it properly.
Yeah.
And I mean, we've seen that happen before in New Zealand. There was a match in England against India about 20 years ago, and it had rained so consistently leading up that they actually erected a marquee over the pitch so they could do some preparation, because they just hadn't been able to do anything. And the result of that was, I think there was something like 480 runs scored in the entire match. Both teams got bowled out for less than 100, and the game was over in 2.5 days. Because if you don't get these bowlers are so good that if you give them a pitch that will give them a 1 degree movement, It doesn't matter really if it's Bangladesh, if it's Zimbabwe, if it's New Zealand, if it's England, if it's India. Any team has got the bowlers that if you give them those sort of conditions at Test match level, they will destroy even the best batsman in the world. Because it's just, you need to really roll a Test pitch hard and cut it short, shorter than you would for a first class, or certainly than a high school match or something, because the bowlers level up much faster than the batters do. And so you've got to make sure it's more batting friendly than you do at the lower level games. So, what I think happened there is they just didn't know. They didn't know what it was going to do. And that's why they chose to bat first, because they thought it'll be difficult for an hour or two, but then it'll settle down and it'll be lovely. And they were right. After 3 hours, it was a beautiful batting pitch. Just the problem was they were all out.
Well, you talk about, the best bowlers in the world, they'll destroy you on any pitch. Matt Henry was unreal in that first innings. Now, a lot of criticism he has had saying that he hasn't done this away. Very good at home. We know what he can do at home in New Zealand conditions. But my God, he was outstanding in that first innings. Took 5 for 15 off 13 overs. O'Rourke, we're going to talk a little bit more him lately. He was outstanding, especially in the second innings with that new ball, which changed everything. But how did you see Henry's game? I thought he was fantastic.
Oh, look, the thing with Matt Henry is he's a seam bowler, right? So he doesn't swing it much, but he does hit the seam. And he hits the seam reliably and consistently. And if there's something in the pitch that will make the ball move a little bit, he is very, very hard to play against. And it's interesting that his career's been in two parts, right? There's the first half of his career when he averaged 50 in his first 15 matches or whatever. And some people, myself included, said he should never play for New Zealand again. I've got to put my hand up on that one. Whereas in the second half of his career, once the Bolt Southey mafia, the hold on the new ball was broken, and Henry was able to get a chance to bowl with the new ball, all of a sudden his career figures have changed dramatically. And he's something like, since he came back, he's averaged something like 22. I mean, stupidly low. Yeah. So when he bowls with the new ball, he's in that sort of range. But the really interesting thing is, it hasn't just been what he's done with the new ball that's changed. He's got better with the old ball. And it's a little bit like, Bumrah does it. Dale Steyn used to do it. Richard Hadley used to do it. It's the deadly second spell. And lots of guys are good with the new ball. There are guys that are good with new ball. There's a charterer from Zimbabwe, amazing with the new ball. But once the ball loses its shine, he's just rubbish. And they can hit him all over the park. And so, lots of guys are good with the new ball, but very few guys are good with the new ball and with the old ball. And what Matt Henry's done is he's actually not just become good with the new ball, he's figured out how to bowl cutters and just get that seam really upright and bowl it a bit harder into the deck, so he's getting some nip even with the older ball. And the result of that is he's turned into a very, very good bowler. In that first innings, it wasn't his first spell that did the damage. In fact, Southey picked up the first wicket, and it looked like there was not much in it for Henry. And then all of a sudden, bang, 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 bang. It was all about Southey building the pressure and Henry releasing it. And then all of a sudden, it was just all of a sudden he got the groove, and it was and he also got to players that didn't know how to play the new ball. That was helpful once the openers were gone. The rest of them were clueless. And so. That was you saw it happen again. It was the second new ball, but it wasn't straight away for Henry again in the second innings. There was about 8 overs of the second new ball where Southey had picked up a wicket, but Henry hadn't done anything. And then at about 91 overs, 92 overs, all of a sudden breakthrough happened, and it was like the Henry can bowl well switch was flicked, and he was back to being amazing. Every bowler struggles for a little. You'll go past the edge a couple of times. You have to have a bit of luck. Cricket's all about being good enough and lucky enough. You've got to have the catches go to hand. You've got to have the edges actually hit the edge, not just go past them. All of that stuff. But what he did do is he keeps, even with the older ball, he's keeping on making the batsman play. He made his length just moved a little bit fuller. And so instead of going past the edge, he was catching the edge. And if people were missing it, it was hitting the stumps rather than bouncing over. It was just those little adjustments, those micro things that he's getting right now that he wasn't getting right before. And those little things make a big difference.
From one bowler to another, O'Rourke, he was just sensational, especially in that second innings. India hit 462, Safraz hit 150, Richard Punt 99. But O'Rourke, he changed that second innings just as much as Henry did. He took the dangerous wicket of Richard Punt. He took Safraz as well. They were cruising along. We were looking like maybe India can have a 200-run lead here. But O'Rourke was fantastic. How did you see his? Yeah, it was. He was.
Look, part of it you've got to look at it. There had been an awful lot of luck. Ajaz Patel should not be buying a lotto ticket right now because he got so many edges and there's so many balls that almost carried to a fielder, or it wasn't as dominant as the scoreboard looked, but yeah, what O'Rourke did is he just came and he just made stuff happen. And you see top players, they don't just wait for things to happen; they make it happen. And the comparisons that people have been making for O'Rourke are McGrath and Morne Morkel, and I can kind of see that, but I think he's a little bit different to those two. I think he's not quite as metronome, but he does have that awkward bounce, and he does hit the seam quite regularly. And those aren't bad bowlers to be compared with.
No, I've noticed with his run up, it's a bit. I don't know if you noticed this or agree with this, but I've noticed a little bit of Mitchell Johnson in his run up, where he moves his arms up and down, a bit like how Mitchell Johnson, completely two different bowlers. But I've just noticed just that little run up, just similar to Mitchell Johnson in the run up. I don't know if you've picked that up. But where has O'Rourke come from? Okay, where has O'Rourke come from? What was his history before playing Test cricket for New Zealand?
Well, I mean, quite interesting. He played high school cricket and was all right. He was a good cricketer, but he wasn't anything. He wasn't extraordinary. He was very good. He was still, a top player, but he didn't get picked for the Auckland squad. He went to university in Christchurch and got hold of one of the guys there and said, "Oh, look, can I maybe bowl in the nets a little bit? And is there anywhere that I can do some off-season training?" And so they went along and did that. And they had a look at him. They're like, "You're not going to be doing much university study this year, son. You're going to be." But they got they got a couple of good bowling coaches. They saw the potential. They saw he bowled a couple of really difficult deliveries, but he bowled a lot of stuff that wasn't that good. And they just got him in. Canterbury they've got a really good system where they train the players well. And you see there's quite a lot of, it's almost the finishing school of New Zealand cricket. These guys that come out of Auckland school cricket, they're raw, they're rough, they're looking really good, but there's a lot of rubbish that they're bowling too. And they get picked up by Canterbury and they polish them. And so you saw that with Kyle Jamieson. You've seen it with a number of players that they turn up in Canterbury and Canterbury teach them how to actually play cricket properly, not just how to run in and bowl, but how to get batsmen out. And so he's done that. He's gone down to Canterbury. He's learnt his game to a much better level. And the result of that is that he's come out as a very good prospect, and he's still really young. I mean, he started playing. You watched him playing in domestic cricket, and he was quite exciting because he got a lot of top edges. There was a lot of guys getting caught at fine leg or third man, and not always. Sometimes getting caught off a full defensive shot at third man, taking the shoulder of the bat and flying over, and things like that. And that's a pretty exciting thing for a fast bowler to be doing. But the thing that was really exciting about him is that he got picked for a New Zealand A tour of Australia, and New Zealand A beat Australia A convincingly. And the reason they beat them convincingly is because Will O'Rourke they took out the whole top order. And about 3 times, just ran through them and left everyone else to clean up the tail. And you go, "Oh, that's pretty exciting." Playing in Australia against Australians who are used to playing in those conditions, used to playing against fast bowlers. It's not like they're it's not like he's playing against a country that are all spinners. Everyone grows up playing against fast bowling in Australia, and it's not like Australia's got a shortage of big blokes that bang it in hard. So if you're doing that, your first tour at 19 years old for New Zealand A, it's like all of a sudden everyone looked at that and thought, we've got something here.
I'll tell you what you have got. You've got a good batsman in Ravindra, another brilliant 100 in this Test match. What did you make of his innings?
Oh, he's lovely to watch, isn't he? I mean, he's just it's a little bit like watching a young Kane Williamson or a young Virat Kohli when they first started out there, and you'd see them make a mistake, and then you wouldn't see it again in the next innings because he'd go away and immediately fix that, and just had that ability to just adjust this game so quickly. Look, he's a wonderful talent, and I mean we haven't had many really great batsmen in New Zealand history. We've had Bert Sutcliffe, we had Glenn Turner, had Martin Crowe, and Kane Williamson, and that's really it. And Rachin Ravindra looks like he might be the fifth one that we've ever had. He really does look that good. And I mean, we've had other guys who've played well for a time. Andrew Jones was a good player for a while. John Reid was a good player for a while. Ross Taylor, a very good player, but he wasn't a great. And I think Rachin Ravindra, very early days, very dangerous to say this, but he's looking like he's going to be something really special.
Moving on to the second, actually, I do want to speak about this. Conway managed to find some form. Hit 91 from 105 balls, kind of out of really nowhere, to be honest, going by his form guide. He was very good in that first innings, wasn't he? Unlucky to not to get 100 as well.
Yeah, he was looking good. He'd almost decided he was going to attack his way out of trouble. He's going to hit his way out of trouble. And one of the things that had happened, he'd been in a real rut, and he went and played in one of the T20 competitions. It might have been in UAE or somewhere. He played in one of the T20 competitions, and all of a sudden he started hitting the ball out of the middle. And so we were hoping when he went to Sri Lanka that would continue, and it didn't. And he looked hopeless again. But no, he did actually hit a 50 in one of the innings in Sri Lanka, and it was like, maybe he's on his way back. I still don't think he's 100% there yet. He still struggles when the ball comes into him. So you saw when Bumrah was bowling to him, and Siraj, both of them, when they're moving the ball in, he's getting cramped up. And there's a technical thing there that he's going to have to deal with, but he's still a wonderful player. And so if he can get over that one little technical thing, he can get to the point where he's starting to find a way to deal with that ball that's coming in at him from outside off stump. He's, which obviously there's a truckload of left-handers in world cricket that struggle with that. David Warner struggled with that, and he made a pretty good career for himself. So he needs to learn how to deal with that. But if he does, I mean, he's had a very good start to his career. He's had a rocky middle, but he could be another one that goes on, and we could be in for another good little period if he comes right. We've got Latham, who's you never quite know what you're going to get with Latham, but when he's on, he can be really. You can have a very good time with him. Williamson comes back. Ravindra, Mitchell, who certainly didn't do anything in this test, but he's a quality player. And then Will Young, who I thought was the most impressive in the second innings. The ball was doing everything, and it just didn't faze him. He just batted as if he was batting on a road at Napier.
Okay, so we'll move on to the second test. Any changes you would make?
The only one I would think of, Williamson's back. So I'm sorry, Will Young. you looked good, but you didn't look that good.
Just praise him. Now you want him out.
Yeah, well, I'm not wanting to drop him. I'm just wanting to select Williamson instead. The question actually could come down to, does Young or Conway? And I think Conway's still ahead of Young at the moment. But if Young keeps kicking goals the way he is, then you've got to start saying that maybe Conway might be struggling for his position. But there's no way you're leaving Williamson out. So Williamson comes in if he's fit. The only two questions I've got, one is on fitness. How's Will O'Rourke held up? He bowled 2 full loads in the game in Sri Lanka, and then he's bowled again quite a big load here. Same with Southee. Do one of those two need to have a rest? And I mean, Ben Sears isn't there; he's out injured. So Duffy comes in. You wouldn't probably pick Duffy to go with Southee and Henry, because they're all about the same pace, about the same height, do about the same thing. Duffy's basically your poor man's Tim Southee, in a lot of ways. And so you probably say if someone was going to miss out, it would be Southee, to bring Duffy in to give Southee a rest, but it would only be to rest him. I don't think you'd pick Duffy ahead of Southee. The one change that I would consider is I didn't think Ajaz Patel. I just think Santner probably offers more with the ball at the moment than Ajaz, just because of the ability to build pressure. That Ajaz has just not been building pressure enough, and but then we didn't get a 4th innings to bowl in, and that's where Ajaz really shines. So you need Ajaz to do that, and I'm not sure that Phillips or Ravindra or Santner are the sort of guys that are going to bowl out a team in the 4th inning. So you've got to almost pick Ajaz because you just need someone who can do that.
Well, anyway, New Zealand win by 8 wickets in the best of 3 Test series. Thank you, Michael, for joining us. Really do appreciate that. And hopefully we see you in the next Test match, which starts next week. But anyway, thank you for joining. Yeah, I think so. But anyway, no, thank you, Michael. If you do want to follow him, add him on Twitter, Michael Lucas Cricket 26 for me. Stay tuned for the. I will be doing personally England and Pakistan with James Butler, 3rd Test, and hopefully with Michael for the 2nd Test and 3rd Test. But anyway, Michael, thank you once again for joining us. I really do appreciate it.
Cool. Catch you
and
later.
That concludes our podcast. Make sure to like and subscribe, and to also, like I said, follow Michael and me on Twitter. And thank you so much for joining and watching, and goodbye.